We were born at Ton Tavern, but the next 250 years begin at Bella Wood Tavern. This is Tavern Talk, where history, humor, and hard-earned leadership lessons collide, keeping the Marine spirit alive for generations to come. Hosted by Captain DaKroub and Zachary, Marines, brothers, and founders of the Bella Wood Tavern, just outside the gates of Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Paris Island. Pull up a stool, grab a drink, and join the conversation, where past meets present. Visit www.bwoodtavern.com or text BWT to 843-929-1775. The next 250 years start here.
All right, here we are. Episode 1, Roy, Tavern Talk. Here we go, brother.
Here it is. It's so much has happened in so little time. Dude, I can't even begin to tell you how incredible of a feeling this is.
Well, let's tell the audience a little bit about how we got here. So let's start off, first of all, where are we right now?
Where we are right now is on the cusp of genuinely bringing to the public and our people, Marines, an actual place that we can go. Our ancestral home ground will now be host to the Bella Wood Tavern.
I love it. I love it.
It's going to be our home.
So right now we're actually in my house at the Trufelhunden Tavern. And this is a place that I've curated over the last, 4 or 5 years. We've had several hundred, if not 1,000 Marines from Paris Island and the air station that have come down here. But there's one person that's been down here more than anybody else, and that's my main man, Captain DaKroub. And Roy and I have spent many nights behind this bar trying probably just about everything that we've got back there. And the one thing that we were talking about is it's missing something. And Roy, what was that we were missing that you talked about less than 2 months ago?
Where is this for everybody else?
Exactly.
Where is this? Very, very fortunate to have lived the lives that we have. I couldn't be more thankful to have you as a brother, Zach, but we're all over the world. And Marines all over the world need to be able to do this right here at the place where it all started.
And there's no place better than the ancestral home of the Marines, Paris Island.
I think I might have been about chest deep in the Atlantic.
With that bottle. That's a very special bottle.
Let's start here. Are we getting into the lore now?
Let's go ahead and jump right into it. It's episode 1. We might as well talk about it. So
yes.
We're talking less than 2 months ago. Is that right?
Oh yeah.
We're sitting here.
This is yesterday.
We're having a couple of drinks. We'd had your whole entire battalion was over here. Is that right? Your command staff or your battalion was here?
There's a whole bunch of dudes here.
And everyone left, and again, like typical nights, it just ended up with Roy and I, and we decided we were going to drink some nice rum in honor of our naval ancestry.
Well, it was exactly that, and you're right. We had another, as you've hosted countless PMEs here, countless units. So our guys came through, and it was just another time where, just the personalities, the time, the sincere authenticity of the time spent, Marines in a place where they felt comfortable. It made for the night to just take off in a different direction this time. So if I may, just like many other nights, but I felt inspired. It wasn't just all the spirits in the back of the bar, but we ended up going to the beach. We're hanging out. Smoking cigars, and
let's back up for a second, because I don't want to get to that yet, because it's a really incredible story that Roy's going to talk about. But we had this moment literally sitting right where we were, where Roy said, look, enough talking about this. We've talked about this for months and months and months now. Let's do this. Let's actually start a business. Let's build a bar. And I had heard that from a million other people, but I'm like, you know what? You're right.
It was that night. I definitively and decisively, we're doing this. We're building a bar.
And I couldn't do it myself. There's nobody else I'd want to do with it other than Roy. And Roy said that with the sincerity of a true Marine. Like, we're going to make this happen, and no matter what, it's going to be successful.
You've heard some of my harebrained schemes in the past. We've both entertained a few different things we've tossed back and forth. But that night, I looked at you, Zach, we're building a bar.
And he didn't ask me. He told me.
Yeah.
He ordered me. He's the captain. I'm the corporal. I'll give it to you.
This was ordained. It did not feel as though this was an idea. It really didn't. It felt as though marching orders had just come down and this was happening, and it was our duty to now make it happen.
To our fellow Marines, obviously we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps. We wanted to do something special. So Roy looked at me and said, we need to do this. And I said, Roy, before we go any further, we need a cigar, and we need to go out and we need to walk into the ocean, because that's where we're born from. So before we decided to take the walk with our cigars, we figured we couldn't bring any beer. We couldn't bring any bourbon. We had to bring the ancestral drink of the sailors, and that is rum. And so we started off with this amazing bottle of Papas Pilar. The first time I had was actually with you when we were shooting over at 21 South or 29 South. What's the shooting club that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Now, give credit where credit is due. You know, Mr. Henderson turned me on to this. If you're a bourbon guy, this is a rum that thinks it's a bourbon, to quote him.
And it is phenomenal. So we're walking down to the beach, and we start having a conversation about something called the Mosquito Bowl. And the Mosquito Bowl is this amazing story. It's getting ready to come out as actually a movie here pretty soon about a bunch of Marines that had been deployed to Guadalcanal and the island hopping campaign. They all started out at Paris Island. And why don't you pick it up from there, Roy?
So it was a great story, and you are a great narrator of these historic pieces. So I'm listening to this, and if anybody's ever had Pilar before, you know that this cap is secured very well.
There's even a chain on it, right?
Right. And for other reasons undisclosed, like, we keep these caps tight. And I was cradling this bottle away from my body because I didn't want to break this chain. So I had it deliberately carried and nested in my hand as such to keep it upright and away from any kind of interface.
And as we're walking down the beach and we're telling this incredible story about
what was the part that you brought up?
Well, it was a bunch of fellow Marines that were all Division I football athletes.
Yep.
And they all got together and they decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and throw a big football game. Let's call it the Mosquito Bowl. And again, it's going to be a movie coming out rather soon here. And they do this Mosquito Bowl, and unfortunately, a lot of those Marines passed away. They didn't survive. They died in the blaze of glory. And just as we were talking about that, Roy, what happened?
I get goosebumps remembering this because I mean, it's a novelty to kind of share the story, and if you hear it, you know, just like any sea story, it gets taller and taller and taller the longer it goes. But it is my sincerest testimony that as we were walking, the cap on this bottle popped off.
And we're sitting there, and I look at him. He looks at me. We're both stunned. And then we're like, wait a second. How can this bottle pop off? The cap pop off when it's screwed down?
It's
got a chain on it. So look at all the turns that would need to happen. And it falls down. We looked at each other and we said, oh my gosh, those are our ancestors talking to us. They're telling us that not only do we have their blessing, but they want us to create this space.
As soon as this idea came through my mind, this bar was as good as built. There's no question. There's no option. Once you have marching orders, this bar was done. However, when this happened, it was different, because when this happened, everything changed, knowing that the entirety, the 250 years of our history was now watching.
It was.
It was watching us do this. That changes everything. That means it has to be done right.
And so as we walked into the beach, we decided to go all the way out into the ocean with our cigars, with our bottle of rum, and baptize ourselves, you know, Christian ourselves, if anything, in what the Bella Wood Tavern is going to mean. And we solidified both our partnership and our business plan in the saltwater with a bottle of rum, with 2 cigars in their hand, saying, we are going to do something so epic that the next 250 years of the Marine Corps will remember the Bella Wood Tavern, just like the last 250 years has remembered the Tyne Tavern.
Born in a bar, reborn in a bar.
No.
We have 250 years at the horizon coming up close that we're about to celebrate and toast to. And it's no mistake that here, just a solid golf swing away from recruits getting totally trained right now, we get the idea to revitalize and resurge our birth story, our genesis, right here where it all started.
So this is where it begins. It begins here, and we chose very specifically for World War One. And a lot of people don't know a lot about World War One. And we all, World War II, Iwo Jima, they gets all the oxygen in the air. But the reality is World War One was the most defining moment, not only in our country, but in the Marine Corps history. And the reason why is up until that point in time, we were an isolationist country. Matter of fact, all countries for that matter were pretty much isolationist countries. Until the Second Reich came along, the German Imperial Army decided they were going to become a superpower. And over the next couple of years in Europe, they absolutely decimated the French and the Belgium and the English and everybody else, the Russians that fought over there, until finally the Americans decided they were going to become part of that war. And that was the first time the Marine Corps was actually tasked with doing infantry tactics rather than what we typically done for the last 100-something plus years before that, which pretty much was just shipside security and being a landing, landing force.
It's a big jump.
Big jump, right from the boat into the water. And, I think about what those first Marines thought of. First of all, they all, officers and enlisted, all trained at Parris Island. The place that you work at right now, the place that literally gave me everything that I have right now, Parris Island. And from Parris Island, those Marines then moved their way up to Quantico before they hopped on ships and sailed off to France. But what's interesting, we're not going to talk necessarily a lot about it tonight, but we'll definitely get into this in another episode. Before they got to Parris Island, where did they come to? Yemassee, South Carolina, which is this little tiny podunk town about 20, 30 miles
Or kind of, some people call this a podunk town, depending on where you're watching.
Exactly. And at Yemassee is where they all got off the train, and they basically formed up. They got their initial uniform issued,
That's
weapons
the initial
issued.
marshaling area for anybody coming in Parris Island training.
And it stayed that way all the way up until about the Vietnam time period. Mm-hmm. But we'll get more into that a little bit.
That's a whole other story to be told there.
But when the Marines got to Europe, and General Pershing's looking at these big, burly, larger than life characters that did really our main job at that time outside of security, where we were longshoremen. I mean, we were basically the
Bouncers.
The bouncers.
of the
Look, we started in a bar. And not just in the bar, we started probably in the back of the bar because we were a bunch of alcoholics and just getting in fights. And some guy named Samuel Nichols said, hey, go ahead and sign this piece of paper. We'd sober up, and 2 days later we're on a ship. And for the next 2 years, we're stuck at sea duty. But at that time, General Pershing looked at these guys and said, look, you guys look like you know how to fight. And there's nothing a Marine loves more than a good fight, right?
Damn right.
And so they got over to Europe, and the 5th and the 6th Marines moved down the Paris-Metz Road after the 3rd Infantry Division, the Rock of the Marne, had pushed the Germans from the Marne River up a little bit north and ended up in the town of Belleau. And that's when the Marines came in, and the first opportunity the Marines really, truly got a chance to taste infantry operations.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when World War I ended and with the German surrender, Germany had no foreign troops on its soil. It was completely forward deployed.
Well, that is absolutely correct. So actually on November 10th of 1917,
That's right.
the Marines were preparing to cross the river into Germany, and the following day, November 11th, is when they called an armistice. It was on the 11th hour of the 11th day, the 11th minute, is when they declared an armistice. And again, it wasn't a surrender. It was an armistice. Now, the Germans had won every single battle up to this point in time.
Now, brings me to this point. There's a saying that you throw out there, and I really like it. Coincidence plus coincidence equals
No coincidence.
no coincidence. So you have a juggernaut of a war machine conquering everything in its path, has no foreign troops near its soil, engages the United States Marines in a form of maneuver new to it for the first time, and is humbled to the point that the very next day they put their hands up.
They called the armistice, and we can get a little bit more into some of the causes of that.
Forge a reputation worthy of a moniker that's going to last another 100 years.
Absolutely.
I don't know what does. Some of y'all already know what I'm talking about.
I couldn't agree more. So Roy, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. Next episode, we're going to actually talk about the Battle of Belleau Woods and what happened. And a lot of the items that you're going to see around here in the Teufelhunden Tavern actually plays into that. And it's going to build a lot into what we're going to talk about when we open up the Bella Wood Tavern. So, Roy, our first episode, I think we did a good job. What do you say?
Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
You've been listening to Tavern Talk by Bella Wood Tavern. Be sure to like, follow, and visit www.bwoodtavern.com or text BWT to 843-929-1775.